Well, first want to thank all of you for taking a little piece of your day today to join me on the topic that a lot of people, struggle to do well in their job search. It's really the development of your resume, and this resume doesn't really require, uh, you know, how you're going to portray yourself. It may be the only way in which you make your presence known to folks. And that's why it's so important to do it right and to take the time to get it right. And so we're going to explore 7 different things that maybe some of you haven't, taken the time to do in the manner that you would like. And I'm going to give you some examples of some of those things that you really need to, to make sure that, you're getting them done and written in a way that it's going to present your value to people. So before I get into the specifics of the resumes, let me just cover a couple quick things for you. The North Shore Executive Networking Group, or NSENG, is an organization I started 14 years ago. It is today the largest job search group in the United States. We've got over 11,600 members in the group, and the membership is absolutely free. So for anybody who's on this call today, not yet, I urge you to go to inc.com. Take advantage of the free membership. You're going to get 2 webinar recordings from me absolutely free, and you're going to have the opportunity to interact and network with some very talented individuals. We've been averaging for the last 6 years more than one member landing a new job every day, and I think it's a real tribute to the quality of the talent in the group and the fact that a lot of people have absorbed and have been applying some of the things that I've been teaching them. Now, there's also a very active NSENG LinkedIn group. It's separate and apart from joining NSE on the website. And I urge you to go ahead and join this group as well. I do have sponsors that advertise positions here. It's a great place to network with folks and introduce yourself and your background and what you may be looking for. And there are, believe me, a lot of people here can be a great help to you. We've had over 3,000 of our members land new jobs. There's a lot of job search resources available through NSENG. I've got 17 on-demand webinar recordings. Each one of them are about 90 minutes in length on all different topics of job search. So I urge you to take a look at that on the website, along with the 3 on-demand workshop recordings. These are 3 hours each, and they do include the following topics. As many of you know, I applied to the U.S. Patent Department for a trademark and received it for my What the Hell approach to job search. The concept behind it is, what the hell do you have to lose by doing things that other job seekers are not doing? You've got to stand out. You've got to make yourself different from other folks. And I've created 13 what the hell moves. I've got a second workshop recording on how to maximize the value of LinkedIn. First section of it is on how to optimize your profile, and the second is on how to really use the platform. And the third workshop is developing effective job search. We've all had jobs. We've had to develop some sort of a plan, and the same is true for anybody who's in a job search. You've got to optimize your time. If any of you are looking, for additional help, I do a lot of job search coaching. I've got coaching packages. I do one-on-one custom coaching with anybody who could use the help, and it's going to range from anything from resumes, LinkedIn profiles, cover letters, how to interview better, how to network more effectively, creating target company lists, and many other things. Again, I can tailor it to whatever you might have a need for. If this is something that you're entertaining, please feel free to email me at mgilbert@nsenginc.com, and we can set up a conversation. One last thing, if you'd like to hear what I'm posting on LinkedIn, typically 3 times a week on different search-related perspectives of mine, go to my LinkedIn profile, click on that bell, and you will be notified every time I put something new up on LinkedIn. The thing I do want to mention is a very great service that's available to anybody who's in a job search. It's called WIOA program, WIOA, and it stands for Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. It's set up by the U.S. government. They set aside, a large sum of money for job seekers to get free training. Now, I do partner with a company here in the state of Illinois by the name of Microtrain. There are, however, other companies like Microtrain that can provide this free training to you in other states across the country. But for those of you that are in Illinois, I urge you to go to microtrain.net/NSENG. It's a special landing page that has been set up for NSENG members. The theory behind this program is that because companies that are WIOA approved are going to get paid by the US government for the training that they give to job seekers, they can pass this training on to you at absolutely no cost. We all know there's not a lot of freebies out there for jobs, but this is a great one, and it can fill in some of the gaps in your background that you may be wishing. Things like Lean Six Sigma, process improvement, project management, and many other different topics, a lot of software languages. So those of you in Illinois, please go to the website. For those of you that are not in the state of Illinois, just do a quick Google search on WIOA approved training companies, and you'll get a list of some of these other firms that can satisfy your needs in the state where you reside. So let's talk a little bit first about some of the facts associated with resumes. Okay, and some of these you're not gonna like hearing, but I think it's really important that we all get very open and honest with each other. One is that the average resume only gets about 6 to 10 seconds of read time. So you've got to do things very quickly in the resume to capture attention. 25% of hiring managers spend less than 30 seconds reading resumes that are even those that are of interest to them. And on average, there's about 100 resumes being submitted to every good job that's sitting online, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on Career Builder, whether it's on Indeed, or being handled by external recruiting firms. There are a lot of people that are looking for jobs, and it's not just the 4% of the U.S. unemployed population. The bigger number are all those people who are currently employed but aren't happy with their jobs. So your competition is not just other unemployed people. Some of the biggest competition is going to be from folks that currently have a job, and that's why the resume has got to be done so well. 76% of resumes are discarded if you have an unprofessional email address. My advice: stick to Gmail. And absolutely do not use old email addresses like AOL or Yahoo. It conveys the wrong message. It tells people you're out of touch with technology. About 88% of the rejection rate happens because people put a photo on their resume. There's no place for a photo on a resume. You can put it on a handbill or a networking document, but not on your resume. And 70% of resumes get rejected by the applicant tracking system. And I'm sure there's a lot of you that are on this call today that are familiar with the ATS. It's nothing more than a piece of software that is looking for keyword matching, and it's going to grade each resume based on the number of keywords that they've inserted into their applicant tracking system versus the number of those keywords that appear and the number of the times that they appear in your resume. So the use of keywords, and we're going to talk a little bit about this through this 30-minute session about how to overcome some of those potential challenges. So the odds are not great, okay? Particularly when you consider there's 100 or more people applying to a lot of the jobs that you want. So I can't say enough about the writing that goes into a resume, a LinkedIn profile, cover letters. The fact is that I am very, very much of the belief that 90% of the job search is marketing. And 90% of the marketing is your ability to write well, because when it comes to a job search, it's about positioning, packaging, messaging, and targeting. Notice that none of those things have to do with HR or talent recruitment, but they have everything to do with marketing. And that's why your ability to write well and to message, why you're somebody they should be talking with is so critical when you're in search. When it comes to a resume, there are certain areas of the resume that get the most attention. And one of those areas is that value proposition section that sits at the top right underneath your contact information. So we're going to spend some time talking about that area. But one thing that I do want to mention, I'm going to start with the first of the 7 pieces that I want to share with you, is to not use words that don't add value. Okay? Here's a quick example, and I've highlighted some of those words that absolutely do not help your cause. I'm an energy results-driven account executive who's passionate about the healthcare industry and highly motivated to delivering customer-focused solutions. Notice those words that I've highlighted. We aren't really separating this individual from anybody else who's going after the same jobs as them. In fact, there are many words like this that I see appearing in resumes and in LinkedIn profiles time and time again. Motivated, focused, dynamic, passionate, results-driven, productive, energetic, a team builder, hardworking, dedicated. All those kinds of words are very soft skills, and soft skills do not get you the job. There are people that will tell you that they think soft skills are important. They don't differentiate you, and that's the problem. You can talk about those soft skills during an interview, but they are not the skills that are going to get you the interview. The harder, the more concrete skills are the ones that will separate you from folks. And we're going to talk a little about some of those. So stay away from these weaker, softer skills and words when it comes to writing your resume. You got to use the right keywords, and this is where search engine optimization comes into play. Some of you may be familiar with this. It's a digital marketing term. When it comes to search engine optimization, when you and I go on Google and we're looking for products, the companies are going to rank the highest when we plug in the keywords that are looking for the product or service we want to get, are going to be those advertisers. But after them, it's going to be those websites that have the greatest number of keyword matches. And the same concept applies to people in a job search, because applicant tracking systems are oftentimes looking to filter out a lot of resumes that don't have enough of the right keywords. So here's an example of what I consider to be some of the more hard skills, as opposed to those softer skills. This happens to be for a finance position. And again, it's all going to vary upon what that particular job description or jobs that you are interested in. But words like financial planning and analysis, sales forecasting, P&L reports, budget management, auditing and compliance, mergers and acquisitions, right? These kinds of words are much harder hitting. They have a lot more substance to them, and they help you tie your background to that job the company's trying to fill. Let's look at another example. For a sales position, it might be words like sales prospecting, key account management, channel partners, funnel development, Salesforce.com, sales strategies, contract negotiations. Every one of these are the kinds of words that typically sit in the earlier portion of a job description. Why? Because these are the skills that most companies are going to use to evaluate whether or not this resume or this LinkedIn profile is one we want to look at more carefully. Because if you take the time to put in a lot of these soft skills into your descriptions, it's gonna detract from the most important ones. It's gonna dilute the important ones that are associated with the kinds of skills that the hiring company is looking for. So let's look at branding. Okay. So the third point is about personal branding, and everybody needs to have a personal branding statement. Okay. Now we have a lot of companies as examples that have brands that we can recite from memory because we've seen them on TV commercials or in magazine ads time and time again. We see these companies online. They become the personality for that company. And the fact is that you do need to develop a branding statement for yourself. And it's not difficult to do, but it does take a lot of very careful thought. There are a lot of individuals out there that have had great success with creating their own branding statements. And many of you have seen me I use Muhammad Ali time and time again because his statement, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, resonates so well with his character. Now, the same is true of Vince Lombardi, who was one of the greatest football coaches, happened to be for the Green Bay Packers. And his statement that became world renowned was winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. It's just in a very simple way said so much to his players, to his fans, to the audiences that saw that team play week in and week out, that this is a guy that was willing to do whatever it took to win. And you as a job seeker, want to do whatever it takes to win. And so you've got to develop your own branding statement as well. So let's look at, we'll look in a second at a couple examples here, but I just want to mention, 5 things here that are the kinds of things that you want to take into account when you're developing your own branding statement. One is got to be personal because it's your reputation that you're trying to describe. It needs to be very pointed because it's got to stand for things that you want to be associated with yourself. It's got to be purposeful, which when I talk about purposeful, I mean it's going to potentially describe things that you do to achieve the goals or objectives that you've been assigned. Got to talk about prioritization because a branding statement isn't going to be used all the time, or more importantly, it's not going to be prioritized all the time. You've got to pick and choose those times when you want to do it. And I got to tell you, one of the best places to brand yourself is at the top of your resume, but it's also at the beginning of a job interview. We'll talk a little bit why that's important. And then lastly, profitability. You want to, in some cases, in your branding statement, incorporate measurable returns, things that you deliver on, things that when somebody hires you into their company, what in return are they getting from you as a new employee? So when it comes to a personal branding statement, it should describe what you stand for. It can create identity. It can describe unique competencies about you. It can certainly enhance your online presence. And for those of you that are active on LinkedIn, your branding statement is a great way to remind people what you stand for. It also enables your network to market you because you're networking with a lot of different people. And a lot of those folks that you're networking with are networking with a lot of other people, whether they are currently employed or not. And a branding statement will help them remember who you are so that when they make introductions into somebody in a company that you want to tap into, they can use your branding statement as a way to describe you in very few words. And that's why I'm the last point, and that's about making yourself memorable. There's a ton of competition out there. You've got to find ways to stand out. And this is where a branding statement can truly make you very memorable. So let's look at a few examples, and I people not make them too long. This is what a lot of my job search coaching is about, developing value proposition summaries and branding statements. But these are a few examples for different kinds of roles. For a marketing role, it might be empowering ridiculously dynamic, or a role that's associated with innovation. It might be translating tomorrow's trend to inspire change today. For a sales role, it might be as simple as the shorter sales cycles. That's so critical to most companies because if they can close a deal in a shorter period of time and hire somebody who's expert at reducing the time it takes to get to a contract, boy, somebody that they want to hear from. And for process improvement, it might be process improvement that leads to profit improvement. There's no end to the number of branding statements that you can consider, but you got to come up with one that really separates you from everybody else. The fourth item here is your value proposition. Now, some of you may have seen that on Monday, I put out a post, yeah, maybe it was actually on Tuesday, about the value of a really strong value proposition summary. Okay, and I can't say enough because it's the area that gets the most visibility in your resume. And so you want people to think of when they think of you. This is where your value proposition is going to help answer that question. It's a summary of your key contributions or attributes. It's going to be essentially the cliff notes behind your background. So that if I didn't read your entire resume and only read your value proposition paragraph at the top of your resume, would it tell me enough of the right things about your background so that I would want to read on, right? So what makes you different and better than other candidates? Because Me Too players don't get jobs. They don't get hired. We typically are always looking for the best candidate we can get for the money that we can afford to pay them. And ultimately answering the question, okay, why should I hire you? Okay, so you've got to think about that value proposition. Let's just dig into it a little bit deeper. Okay, this is an old resume of mine when I was in job searches, and my branding statement was marketing initiatives that drive sales growth. Now, I've highlighted a number of phrases in here that are hard skills associated with my background at that time. Revenue growth, lead generation, data and analytics, digital marketing, pay-per-click ads, search engine optimization, social media, other digital media means, channel partners, international experience, and technology. These are the kinds of things that were typically showing up in a lot of the positions that I was pursuing at the time. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to characterize the things that I've done in my background that clearly had value to companies that I was wanting to pursue. Whether they had a job or not was really secondary. But you've got to have a value proposition that is going to excite the reader, going to capture interest to want to read on, but also that it can be a standard that helps people know and understand what the background is. So let's go through a, sort of a before and after picture of an individual that I've coached. Okay, this happened to be for an individual who came to me with a value proposition that read along these lines. It was a sales and operations executive, success in building high-performing sales and service teams, leveraging customer relationship management programs, increasing profitability, research and applying marketing analytics expertise, recognized for developing integrated marketing plans, and on. Okay, so this was a very brief and concise, but it was missing a lot of the words that would bring a lot more value to this individual's background. And this is where we ended up. Okay, revenue growth, sales, and operations leader. Okay, revenue growth being so important to most companies. But I've highlighted here the words that did not appear in the original version of their value proposition, and those that we ultimately add. Okay, things like production operations, service, customer service, P&L management, strategic planning. President's Club Award winner, which immediately told the reader that this is somebody who has consistently exceeded their quota. Scalable direct sales and service organization, sales turnarounds, merger and acquisition activity, process improvement, and Six Sigma. All of these were hidden. They didn't appear in the previous version. But once I dig into their background and understand what made them unique, what made them a strong candidate, well, we started to incorporate those things so that their value proposition now, really differentiated them in the market and provided them with a much higher level of stature amongst the readers that were going to look at them. Let's look at another example. Again, I'm highlighting, it's a totally different kind of position. This is a program delivery and business services leader. I've highlighted the words here that are the hard skills that, in my mind, help to differentiate them and characterize their background in a way where it would get the reader to want to hear more. So, business transformation, customer support service system delivery, software, telecom, system changes, cloud-based automation tools, continuous, process improvement, award-winning contact centers, organizational change. These are very specific items, but when you put them all together, it really positions this individual in a much stronger way than where they were, quite honestly. And this is what is going to capture the interest of hiring managers and key influencers that are going to also be a part of the interview process. But you got to get those interviews, and one way to get those interviews is with a really strong resume and an equally strong LinkedIn profile, as well as a cover letter that separates you. So this is a good example of the kinds of keywords that are going to make you a candidate that they'll want to take a second look at. This is why I say search engine optimization and having the hard-hitting words is so important. Let's look at item number 5. Action verbs and achievements need to appear in virtually every bullet point that you create under every job that you show. Okay, so every one of you now are a salesperson. You've got to be able to describe in a bullet point the before and after picture of what you've done in that role. And the easiest way to do this is to just think about what was the challenge I faced, what were the actions I took, and what was the result or impact of the actions that I put into place. This is a very simple process, but I gotta tell you, the hard part is getting it down to 2, maybe 3 lines of copy in a bullet. This is where a lot of people struggle because what you don't want are long drawn out bullet points because they just don't get read near as much as those that get right to the point. One of the reasons why I tell a lot of folks that when they're writing a bullet point, give the punchline up front. Tell them what the accomplishment was, what if there was measurability, even better, and then explain what you were able to do. When you do this in your bullet points, what does it tell the reader? It tells them you've been there, you've done exactly what we're trying to do. And this is what opens up the door to more and more interviews. So one of the things you want to do is make sure you start each bullet point with a past tense verb. It will force you to write your bullet points in the correct manner, whether it's drove change, captured new revenue, reduced operating costs, generated incremental sales, and on and on. I can share with you, so many of these, but notice what they all share in common is that they started the phrase with a action verb in the past tense. And that will always put you on the right path to creating a bullet point that's going to have a lot more substance to it. So let's look at an example here. All right. So this is an individual. They've got a branding statement at the top. They've got their value proposition. They've got some key competencies underneath that, and then they get right into their most recent job. I see too many resumes where the most recent job is three-fourths of the way down the page because they just put so much stuff up at the very top, and that to me is problematic. People want to see where you've worked most recently. It's going to get the most visibility of the jobs in the background. But notice the areas that I've underlined here. For those of you that have metrics or quantitative measurability in your job, you absolutely want to insert them into those bullet points. And one way to take a closer look at this, let's see, here we go. Notice in those bullet points, consistently delivered over 100% revenue growth, doubled web traffic, and decreased budget by 20%, reduced IT operating expenses by over $300,000 annually, secured $24 million in future revenue, lowered 3PL costs by 19%. I realize that not every job has measurability like those jobs in sales and marketing or in finance, but you can still get the impact of what you did as long as you start with that past tense verb and then talk about what the impact was, whether it's measurable or not. We can all save time and optimize efforts. We can reduce around any number of things, but those are the kinds of things that you'll be able to highlight in your background. Another item that, again, another example, notice that it's led, managed, identified, enhanced. Okay. In this particular case, there's also some measurability associated with them. The sixth item that I'm going to cover here is the whole idea of being memorable and being likable. Now, I can tell you that the best candidate does not always get the job. In fact, many times the best candidate never even gets an interview. Why? Because they probably didn't have enough keyword matches. They didn't really convey their value to the company effectively, and so they were just viewed as anybody else. But I can tell you that some of the things that will make you memorable and likable are going to be elements that may be sitting right at the bottom of your resume. I always encourage my coaching clients to include, if they can, something about themselves at the bottom of the resume that talks about their life outside of the professional working world. Things that you might participate in, whether they're charitable causes, things that you've done from a volunteering standpoint, your personal interests and activities. And a good example of some of these is if we just look at the bottom of an old version of my resume. I talk about some of the things that I've done outside of the specific jobs that preceded this section. But I can tell you, so many interviews that I had when I was in job searches, I had people come to me at the beginning of the interview and say, you know what, I found something really unusual in your background and that you had played baseball in Japan. Really would like to just spend a few minutes before we're done with the interview, and I'd love to hear a little bit about some of your experiences with that. It made me different, and I realize not everybody has something so different or so dramatically different from playing ball in another country, but everybody has got interests and activities outside the working world. Okay, whether it's travel or coaching or volunteering for some really well-known organizations. This is a way to connect with people on a personal level, and it can make you a lot more likable because people tend to hire folks that they like. And all things being equal, if I've got two candidates that are of equal caliber, but one is one that I've got a personal affinity to because of something in their background that resonates with me personally, they're going to have an advantage. And I'm not unique in that regard. I find this to be true time and time again because hiring managers want to hire somebody that they think they can get along with, that they think can get along with the people in the group, somebody they think is going to be fun, to be around. And this is your opportunity to show some of the things about your background that may in fact separate you from a lot of other candidates who have a lot of the same skills as you. The seventh and final one that I want to mention to you is that you absolutely have got to have a perfectly worded resume. And I come across a lot of resumes with either misspelled words or terrible grammar. Now, the fact is that when it comes to bullet points, this is probably one of the few opportunities in your life where it's okay to write in fragment sentences. But misspelled words, absolutely no excuse for it, and I eliminated so many people when I was hiring and interviewing folks for positions that I was trying to get filled if they had a misspelled word or two in it. It's just inexcusable because what it told me is that you didn't have a sense of ownership for the quality of the product that you deliver. And when it comes to a resume, if you can't take the time to make sure that everything is done well, and particularly spelling, well, then it's not necessarily the kind of person that people want to have on their team. So go to Grammarly, run your resume through there, run your cover letters through there. It will help identify any potential misspelled words or grammatical mistakes. And there's no excuse for ever turning in a resume that got misspelled words in it. And this is one way to ensure that that just doesn't happen to you. So these are the ways in which to improve your resume from my perspective. I've got probably 17 more, but I think these are good examples of the kinds that you need to do extremely well when it comes to portraying yourself. These are areas that I work with a lot of job seekers on, and I urge you take the time to do these right. Now, before we close it out, I want to just mention a couple quick reminders. If you're not yet a member of NSE&G, please go ahead and do so. Join the group and mention to other people you know that are in a job search or not happy where they're currently working. If you are not yet connected with me on LinkedIn, send me a LinkedIn connection. I've got 30,000 LinkedIn connections that will help you get a lot more visibility and a lot more search results when you're going on to LinkedIn looking for certain kinds of people in certain industries or in certain geographic locations or with certain job titles. Join our LinkedIn group in addition to joining NSE&G. Check out my videos and podcast interviews and TV interviews. Look at the upcoming events that we've got. And of course, take a look at that library of 17 webinar recordings and 3 workshop recordings that have helped over 3,000 people in NSE&G to land their next job in a shorter period of time. So last thing is that if you do consider the possibility of working with a coach, I'm happy to have an exploratory free conversation with you. Don't hesitate to reach out to me and we can talk about your search and how I believe I can help you. So with that in mind, I thank you all for taking the time to be with me during this time of the day. I know that the job search, it can be tough, and I know that the market is tougher today than it was a year ago. You've got to be willing and able to do things that make you stand out from other folks. The resume is just one piece, okay? But let's make sure that at least that one piece is done extremely well and helps differentiate from your competition. With that in mind, I wish you all the best in your job search. And thanks so much for taking a few pieces of your day to spend with me and the topics that I wish to discuss with you. Take care.